It reminds me of from Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi says to Luke, saying, "The Force is that field that surrounds us and protects us." So consciousness is like the Force.
Absolutely.
It surrounds us and protects us. But the thing is, if we're like fish swimming in water in this field, in this ocean of consciousness, how come we just don't seem to know that or remember that?
Because we're swimming in this ocean of consciousness. You know, if you think of sunlight, or you think of the air that we breathe, this room is full of air, but do you ever think that that air is keeping you alive? If that air disappeared for 1 second, you'd know its disappearance. If sunlight disappeared, you wouldn't be able to live. So you don't think of the effects of these things, or you don't think of sunlight as sunlight. You think of the effect of sunlight. You think of the effect. You know, you live because of the effect of those. Consciousness is like that. We're alive because we are consciousness. There's an effect to consciousness, and we're that effect. Our bodies, our minds, our soul is the effect of that consciousness that we are.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it, is that we are, in a way, maybe the cause and the effect.
I think we are, and we can certainly get into that later.
One thing that I've enjoyed in these, I mentioned that we've been meeting with you every Saturday with a small group for the last 3 years and talking about our experiences in consciousness. And one of my favorite parts is when you, as an artist, do a drawing and actually visually, a picture is worth 1,000 words, where you actually create a picture of these experiences that you're having. Would you mind doing one of those now?
Okay. Yeah, and yes, I think that would be enjoyable, and also kind of a different way of looking at what consciousness is, and how you can even scribble a drawing to kind of implicate or imply what it is. So I'm going to do a little sketch of the structure of consciousness. It's just going to be a scribble. Let's start. We're starting with a blank screen. Here it is, pure consciousness. It's unbounded. There's nothing there. And I'm going to draw a big circle. This is the potential of human consciousness. Here I am, or you are. We're just a little guy right there. And here's let's call that the source of creation. You could put the cosmos in here. You can put everything that exists is in this circle. Notice how consciousness is beginning to fill the space up. You could look at this as let's look at this as the source of creation. Look at this as individual life. You notice they look very similar. So if I were to put a point here and a point there, they correspond. Every point on the cosmic level has its corresponding point on the individual level. So I can just make a bunch of rays here. These are lines of connectedness, let's call them.
So the upper circle is the cosmic level, the lower circle is that individual level of
That's
consciousness.
right, you could say that. Yes, exactly like that. And there's a way that consciousness talks to itself. Let's call this is kind of like, you know how the sun gives us life and makes possible the earth. Let's call this the source of human life on earth, physical life on earth. The sun gives us life, gives the planet life, gives us an individual life. Okay? So it looks exactly the same on the universal level as it looks like on the individual level. And you notice as these lines intersect, they start creating a pattern. I could call that pattern the structure of consciousness. And an awake mind can see this in one phenomenon, is this phenomenon as one experience. Okay, so where's the layers? Okay, so what happens is that, let's call them the laws of nature: sun, water, air, fire, and so forth. Those physical laws of nature are what support our body and our consciousness. We can't live without them. They percolate from cosmic regions and create human consciousness, create me, and they come from, let's call it the source. And let's just make some layers here. There happens to be 8 of these layers, and we'll, okay, let's call them, I won't go into the details, but these layers, let's call, there's a process how sunlight is part of human consciousness. There's a process how the air is part of human consciousness. There's a process how it functions in relation to human consciousness. The enlightened experience includes everything that's in consciousness, not just one layer, all layers, not just the immediate environment, but the distant environment, even the divine environment, the absolute environment, and the laws of nature. So the distant environment would be all these laws of nature that percolate down and create human consciousness. All of that is a part, structures human consciousness, and ultimately human consciousness structures these laws of nature. They're exactly the same. And what I would do right now is kind of put a big spiral here, and starting from creation source here, I'll put a big spiral here. You notice they look exactly the same. They're not any different. So you could connect them all up. This is a mirror of cosmic events. It's starting to look like a really interesting scribble. And believe it or not, there's some oneness and harmony to this scribble. It's all within consciousness. It's all within, let's call this radiating sun or source of light. Okay?
Wow. That's the best simple one-word expression I can give to this. I mean, on one level, I don't quite get all the details, but what I do get is maybe my takeaway from this is this congruency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's still going.
Oh, it's okay.
The congruency between the cosmic level and individual level, that it's a bi-directional thing where the individual level is creating, there's a partnership almost between the individual level of consciousness and the cosmic level of consciousness. And there's a interweaving or a coming together between the two. That's what my takeaway on this. Is there any other kind of main point you could say, which is this drawing? Because there's so many levels and layers of what you've just drawn.
When I talk about connectedness and simultaneity and see-throughness and unboundedness and all-inclusiveness, I mean everything. Everything is included. You can't say for some reason the stars and the sun and the moon, those are not connected to us. It's just that we're normally not aware of it. They are part of the enlightened experience, and maybe we're stretching a point here a little bit, but you could call, there could be a spiral galaxy there. This only looks big if our consciousness is small, but if our consciousness is all of this, then this is just an inclusive part of the whole.
Okay, so then I'm now getting my next takeaway point,
All
is
right.
that there's a knit together wholeness of the whole field of consciousness. That's why they call it totality, for example.
Exactly.
And that knit together wholeness of this big, the whole enchilada, and we are both, our consciousness really is both individualized, but at the same time all embracing of the whole picture.
Absolutely. And this might look like a scribble, but inside consciousness I see this very clearly. And if I were to take a lot more time, this would look very symmetrical, very sequential, and very organized. On a scribble like this, it kind of looks a little bit random, but to an aware mind, it's extremely simple. It's one experience. It's inside this circle, which floats in pure consciousness.
I mean, as long as we're on the subject, as long as we're exploring your artistic creations, this was in a beginning scribble. I've mentioned about you being both a design artist and especially a fine artist, and you've done so many paintings, gorgeous paintings, which just are like glimpses into the fabric of reality. maybe we could take a look at a more
Concrete
concrete version of that. So here we are with bringing in your painting. Oh, this big heavy one. You create these heavy artworks. And let's see how we can connect what you've done with the sketch now to the richnesses in the details here.
So it's obvious that this is a very detailed painting. There's lots of detail. And what I'm doing here in this painting, when I painted it, this is an oil painting, I did many different layers, like I've been talking about, the layers of consciousness, and these layers are displayed in this painting. If you look closely, you'll see an Iowa farm scene right here. There's a farm scene, it's tiny, but it's there, and there's a water tower. What I'm showing is that the so-called gross relative is related to the subtle areas of consciousness, and there's a lot of beauty going on inside consciousness, there's a lot of beauty going on outside consciousness.
So you said something interesting. You just said that there's so much layers of beauty. Now, is that something, why is it that when you flesh out more of the details and the richness, somehow
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
And what it is that this light of consciousness, even on the most abstract level, is beautiful. It shines, it's luminous, it's uplifting, it's delightful. And any artist who tries to paint that will start doing something beautiful, colorful, wonderful, rich. And that's what the value of having pure consciousness. Having pure consciousness doesn't mean flat nothingness. It means reverberating everythingness. Sort of like what I'm trying to do here.
So this has been fascinating, Harri. I mean, we've really explored the full range of creativity and particularly your creative process. And I'm wondering, is there a relationship between the artistic creative process and also maybe the process of creation and especially how we explore consciousness? Is it all the same kind of creativity, the creative process?
All processes in life are about the result that comes with it. So if it brings delight or it brings happiness or expansion, whether it's the creative process or doing the dishes, we only care about the benefits that we get out of it, the happiness the beauty we get out of it. So yes, it's the same process.
So I guess we can look forward to more creative unfoldment, which, speaking of which, is, I mentioned in episode 1 that you were coming out quite soon with your first book.
Yes.
And it just so happens, I happen to have a copy of Harri's newest book, actually his only book, his first book, The Landscape of Consciousness, a personal description. It's very exciting, Harri. This is coming out real soon.
Absolutely. And it's very surprising to me. When I wrote this book, it revealed a lot of depth and richness to me, surprisingly, because I was forced to go through all these layers and describe them. It's a very personal description of my own growth, of experience, and how it relates to my life and to everybody's life.
I can say from my personal experience, having reviewed the first part of this book, this Landscape of Consciousness is such a good title because it really begins to explore how we explore this terrain, the environment. And what I personally liked the most about it is that it interwove this cosmic level with the personal level. And I feel all of us are on that kind of journey. That's our odyssey, to integrate that personal level with the cosmic level. And with that, I think it's a good close to this particular segment. And I'm wishing you all once again good consciousness and happy trails.